Are you angry, concerned, and dissatisfied enough to actually do something right now about Washington politicians who are incapable of governing our United States of America? We the people have political power through our economic power. 70% of our economy is based on what we buy as consumers. Money is apparently the native language in the land of Washington politics. If we talk and act in terms of money, we can influence Washington for the benefit of our country. But we have to act together. What should we do? Buy New Balance athletic shoes. Do not buy gas from ExxonMobil, also known as ExxonMobil and Esso. These actions should begin immediately and continue through December 31st, 2011, this year. What is our message? Put country first. If Washington politicians need further explanation, then they should hear this. Put country before party. Put country before lobbyist. Put country before campaign contributions. And put country before ideologies. Why buy shoes from New Balance? New Balance is the only and last manufacturer of athletic shoes in our country. Their management has made a commitment to U.S. workers. They could make more money by moving all of their manufacturing offshore, but instead they choose to employ 1,000 Americans in America. We can reward their commitment and their courage. We must show Washington politicians how we are prepared to protect and create American jobs, even if they aren't. And we need to tell Nike and other American manufacturers that they should return the jobs they have moved offshore back to the U.S. So buy a pair of New Balance shoes between now and December 31st, 2011, and buy American for America. Now, why not buy gas from ExxonMobil? Our country is significantly in debt and can no longer afford to provide annual subsidies of nearly $4 billion to the highly profitable oil industry. The oil industry uses its financial power to buy enough Washington politicians so that the House and the Senate will no longer discontinue these subsidies. ExxonMobil is the largest and most profitable oil company. Not buying gas from ExxonMobil will send a message to Washington politicians that we want these subsidies stopped now. In the past 5 years, the top oil companies in Fortune's annual rankings had $350 billion in profits. In the same 5 years, ExxonMobil had $170 billion in profits. In fact, according to Fortune, ExxonMobil has been the most profitable company in its annual overall ranking for the last 8 years. In 2011, ExxonMobil's profits have increased 41% from $7.6 billion in Q2 of 2010 to $10.7 billion in Q2 of 2011. The oil industry uses its profitability to buy Washington politicians for its continued financial advantage. Since 1998, oil and gas companies have spent $1 billion on lobbying-related activities. In 2010, ExxonMobil spent $27 million lobbying Congress and another $3.3 million through May of this year. An important example of the success of the oil industry in buying senators occurred this May when an effort to repeal some but not all of the oil industry subsidies failed in the U.S. Senate. Those bought senators who voted with the oil industry have received over $21 million in career oil contributions. Those senators who voted against the oil industry have received only $5.4 million in career contributions. The net result is that those senators who supported the oil industry have received 5 times as much career oil money donations as those who oppose the industry. Unless something changes, the oil industry will receive about $44 billion in subsidies over the next 10 years. We the people should ask this reasonable question. Is $44 billion in subsidies to the highly profitable oil industry a priority for our country now? A reasonable answer is no. We the people should ask this reasonable question. Would we pay less at the pump if the oil industry did not spend so much money on lobbying, political contributions, and all related activities? A reasonable answer is yes. 1 cent in the price of gas equals about $600 million of our consumer disposable income. If the industry would find ways to reduce the price of gas by just 1 cent, an additional $600 million would be available for our economy in this serious recession. 2 cents would be an additional $1.2 billion for us to spend on food, housing, and other essentials. Now, suppose enough Americans decide to not buy gas from ExxonMobil, and there is an impact on its October through December sales and earnings. What is ExxonMobil likely to do? Put its marketing spin machine on high speed in an attempt to convince us that not buying their gas for 90 days is unfair and inappropriate. This is what their spin machine had to say in the past when windfall profit taxes or the elimination of subsidies have been considered in Washington, and what is it likely to spin now? The spin. The oil industry employs millions of Americans and provides income for retirees who invested in the oil industry. The reality, yes, but this has nothing to do with whether the highly profitable oil industry should receive $44 billion in subsidies over the next 10 years. The spin. We are probably the most heavily taxed industry in this country, which is a quote from ExxonMobil CEO Rex Tillerson on CNBC in May of 2010. The reality, they pay taxes like other companies. Forbes, who believes the subsidies should end, does acknowledge that the oil industry pays higher federal taxes than other industries. CNN Money, however, points out that during the first 3 months of 2011, when efforts were underway in Washington to end subsidies, ExxonMobil said it paid $3.1 billion in taxes in the U.S., which is more than the $2.6 billion it made in profits selling oil and gas. Now, how could that be? Because ExxonMobil chose in that spin to include federal and state gasoline taxes the company collects from drivers, but which it passes on to the government. It also included the payroll taxes ExxonMobil pays on behalf of its employees. Why the need for such inappropriate exaggeration? Perhaps to undermine American progress, which has looked at the taxes paid by ExxonMobil and concluded that the company's effective tax rate is only 17.6%, which is below the average individual federal tax rate of 20.4%, which would mean that ExxonMobil pays less in taxes than we the people. The spin. ExxonMobil uses oil subsidies for investments in clean and renewable energy. The reality, ExxonMobil is really only an oil business. The Center for American Progress points out that in 2008, when ExxonMobil had $45 billion in net income, it invested less than 1% in renewable energy. That was the least in percent and absolute dollars in the oil industry, which only invested about 4% of its 2008 profits in renewable and alternative energies. The spin. ExxonMobil may have to lay off employees if enough Americans do not buy their gas. The reality. The focus of our efforts will last for only 90 days. ExxonMobil's industry-leading levels of profitability should enable it to absorb the financial impact of our actions. We should also understand that it has the option of reducing pay for its executives before laying off employees. Consider that in 2010, just the top 5 executives of ExxonMobil received $16.2 million in salaries and bonuses, as well as $39.8 million in stock awards. So they have this choice. They can put employees before shareholders, or they can put shareholders before employees. We the people can put country first by using our economic power as political power. We should buy New Balance athletic shoes and not buy gas at ExxonMobil and Esso between now and December 31st, both of which are legal, peaceful, and will involve little, if any, sacrifice by us. These 2 actions will make this clear to Washington. 1, Americans need jobs in America now. And 2, discontinue $44 billion in subsidies to the highly profitable oil industry over the next 10 years as part of our national debt reduction. Do we the people put our country first and take these actions through our commitment, determination, and courage? Or do we do nothing because of our cynicism, complacency, and indifference, and let Washington politicians put party, lobbyists, and ideologies before country? To use the language of Main Street USA, we need to get pissed off enough and legally and peacefully show these goddamn Washington politicians that we've had enough of their bullshit. Send this to everyone you know, using every means possible, and let them decide for themselves whether they will buy New Balance shoes and not buy gas from Exxon, Mobil, and Esso between now and December 31st.